got awesome tomatoes, like a
Awesome
Jersey tomatoes. Like, yeah. I mean, like, size of your face, and they're
like
delicious.
one of those Oxheart tomatoes.
You got it. Heirloom
Beautiful.
tomatoes.
Heirloom tomatoes.
That's
like
what's
Nonna's
up.
style from Nonna's garden.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Right?
I
And
think
like
that was...
sweet corn.
Yeah. Oh,
sweet corn. Yeah,
It sounds
sweet
like
corn
you
and
would
like
have had an amazing Thanksgiving lunch with all this sweet corn and tomatoes.
we did. We had an amazing Thanksgiving lunch for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a great segue into this podcast. Hello, Aaron Levine. Welcome to the Ponytail Show. Thanks for being here, mate. So nice to have you on this little internet space.
I love it. Thanks for having me, Lauren.
So much happiness right now, really. So I wanted to have you on because of your awesome Insta project that I feel like you've been doing like all year. Just like getting pals in the industry on and just letting them open their hearts to whatever the hell they want to say about life, about fashion, about whatever, and give a little slice of their little perspective on life. And that's beautiful, man.
Totally. Thank you. I appreciate it. I've been doing it for about a little over a year, maybe since like last October. I was sitting in this meeting, right? And this guy sitting next to me, who I like a lot, he like complimented, like a belt that I was wearing, right? Bear with me for a second.
Okay, I'm bearing with you.
So, all right, bear with me. So he's like, I like that belt. It's, I like your crocodile belt. And I'm like, actually, it's alligator, thank you, But then,
ouch, man.
all day,
ouch.
I was like, why would I say that? Why would I even correct? Like, why
did you do that?
I'm like, I don't know. But I didn't say it in like a mean way. I was just like, oh, thank you so much. It's out. But then I'm like, why would I do that? Because I'm like a psycho about that kind of stuff, right? Like about all the little details. And then I assume that like other people are, but other people aren't. They don't really care, But then like the whole day I was like in anguish. Like, why would I say something like that? Even though I wasn't trying to be rude, I was just trying to be like, oh yeah, thanks, man. But it's actually alligator, Like, why would that matter? So then I posted it, literally no picture. I just like put it on like an Instagram square. And I'm like, does anybody ever say this kind of stuff where like you say it and then you regret it and then it like eats at you and then it like haunts you? Like you can think about like things that you said like maybe forever ago and like your eyes like pop open and you're wide awake laying in bed and you're like, why would I say that?
Just haunting
so I posted
you at
that.
Night.
Haunting me like a succubus.
Your grandma's worst. I don't know where I was going with that. Just
regardless,
my grandma
like
was a really bad cook. One of them, anyway. One of them was an amazing cook. One of them was terrible at cooking. So I was going to say your grandma's real bad cooking, but like, maybe your grandma was a really good cook, man.
She was a tremendous cook, man.
I'm sorry,
but
Grandma.
It's the opposite of that. It's the opposite of that.
Right.
Whatever's the opposite of that is like what it was, right? But so I just like posted that, and then, dude, like a bunch of people just like reached out, and they were like, "Totally, this happens to me all the time. I totally feel like this." And so it was like there was this weird like frequency that like there was a bunch of people like kind of resonating on, and I was like, well, maybe like I'm gonna open up and like and try to have this conversation with people, right? So then I, like when I was at my last job, it was like a lot of pressure that I internalized, and I had like a breakdown, and I was like, so I just shared that, and people were like, dude, totally, this happens to me too. And it started to like really resonate. Let's just pause
for a second here, because we need to give people context right now. Let's just quickly dive into your last job and that stage of your life, and just bring people in to what we're talking about right now. So this is definitely in the menswear world. I read that you started out kind of at, what was it? Club Monaco Maybe
that's where I was last job.
But
that's okay. You don't have to know. Why would you know? Why would you know? You don't
I'm trying to be professional on my very professional podcast, man. Okay, just give me a break.
I hear you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that you looked into it. But we're not. This isn't a test. You don't have to like have this stuff memorized. We just get to meet each other for the first time. Yeah, totally. So, like, just for context, right? Like, for people out there, like, so as like a creative person with a lot of I don't know, like insecurities and self-doubt and like imposter syndrome feeling, right? Because like this isn't what I studied for. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of figuring it out every day. I just wanted to see if like anybody else started to feel like that, right? Which is like really the root of the project. And it kind of came across like organically. But just to give everyone context, like I'm in apparel design. I've been doing menswear for like a long time, 20 years or so. And I started working on like women's design about 4 years ago. And I just love it, man. I love the process. I love working with creative people. But the longer I've worked with creative people, like the more I found like this common thread of like, you know, of them being specifically hard on themselves in like certain areas, you know, like tortured individuals, right? Like come across, you know, like come across like everything is amazing and they, you know, they dress uniquely and present themselves in a unique way, which from the outside makes them look confident and everything. But like there's a common denominator that I've kind of found with like a lot of people in the creative industry is that, you know, a lot of them really busted their ass to get to where they are. Right. And a lot of them, I don't want to generalize between and say everybody, obviously, but like the main kind of things that have come up are like, man, insecurity, anxiety.
Anxiety is a big one.
Big one, man. A big one, you know, and it's like, if you're, it's like back pain, right? It's like, if you don't have it, you can't explain it to somebody because it's like, it can be absolutely debilitating and crippling. And that and for people that aren't anxious, it's like, you know, man, you just need to get out more. Or you just need to like have a cup of coffee and like smile or go work out or do this. And it's like, it's really not like that, you know? And it's like, and, you know, depression is like similar. Right. And I am, holy cow, I am not a doctor. I'm not pretending that I know anything about what the hell I'm talking about.
Full disclosure, guys.
Full disclosure. do not take this as
Aaron's
like face
not
value.
a doctor, okay? Just get that clear. Yeah, but I feel you, man. Like, I mean, also, dude, the fashion industry is it's predicated on judgment. It's predicated on how you present yourself in the world. And like, I hate to say this, and some people living in fairyland would like to believe that when you look at a person, you're not making judgments, micro judgments all the time. But that's the beauty of fashion as well, is being able to express who you are and being able to figure out like what kind of weird stuff you're into. And it's more about getting to know yourself and in that way. But, you know, for the majority of people, you know, who don't get into fashion that deep, it's just like, God, I have to wear clothes every day. God damn it. You know, like I have to wear clothes to get out of the house, you know, and it's like a real anxiety for a lot of people. Super
totally,
anxiety.
Right? And you know, for people in the industry too, you know, as I found like on the design side is that your work is constantly being critiqued. Right. Yeah. And to your point, and like being judged and like when you're presenting, you're being judged on like how you present yourself, and then the output and like the product that you're presenting. So it is a constant feeling of like, man, being judged. And then it's like, you could have one great meeting, but then right after that, you've got two more, you know, and it's not about like what you've done. It's never about what you've done. It's always about what you're doing and what you do next, right? So, like, even if you have like a great, successful, you know, collection, meeting, you know, whatever it is, presentation, it's done, and then you just start working on the next one, right? So it's this like really, it's a marathon, and I think if you can figure out a way breathe through it and like stay mellow and like really give away credit and not take credit. Like I think there's a lot of with that, with like the grinding process of it, there's a lot of like fighting over like who gets credit for things. And I came up with this idea and I did this and I'm worth this because I came up with this idea that earned this or whatever. As opposed to just like trying to motivate each other and inspire each other and then just give away credit. I find that has like way lowered my anxiety or my like, just nerves and sense of worth. It's just like, man, if you can just like create a space where people are creating and like you're trying to create at a really high level and then you just motivate each other, then that's a big deal.
But, that reminds me of like team sport. Okay. Like, can you imagine, any professional, team sport, having a team, say let's say a soccer team or whatever, and having every individual player on that team just be playing for themselves and like playing for the shots for themselves and all that. Like, nothing, like you would have the worst team ever if you had a sports team like that. But teams in creative industries are no different from that. But for some reason in this like time and space that we find ourselves today, we've shifted away from like the collective we into the I, the me kind of culture.
Totally,
and that's
man.
Fucking stressful, man.
Yeah,
like,
man.
It's so stressful, and people get depressed about that, And we like, I feel like it's, for people who feel like this is fundamentally against the grain, it's important to speak up about it, and that's what I really liked about your project.
I agree, right?
Yeah.
And then, like in the sense of, giving people like, a lot of the people that come on and have chosen to do it, they've got way bigger reach than I do, and like maybe my reach is tiny straight up. It's like, I don't know, it's not large. So, but what's interesting about like the people that are kind of like that I'm associated with on Instagram is like, a lot of us are like in the same field, so you can get a lot of different insight, which I really thought could be valuable for people like coming up too, right? Like, I don't remember, like, I don't know, I want to know about your history and I want to know about like how you guys started doing what you're doing, but like, and then one of these things is like, okay, so how do you share with like some younger folks coming up? Like, look, it didn't just happen overnight, man. Like you had to like put in work, put in like, commitment and time and energy and failure, rack up like a bunch of failures, like man, that's critical.
Dude, it's failure like all the time. It's not just like failure back then. It's like failure all the time now. And what's funny actually with this podcast that I started this year is like failure keeps coming up as a central theme to every talk, which is beautiful.
Totally.
Like,
go
ahead. I'm just saying, like, it's like
I just watched you light up when you said failure. I watched your whole face light up.
Yes, and that's, failure. Yeah. Like. I feel like that's like the whole process. Like I'm really obsessed with like, nature and like the idea of order and chaos and like how these kind of forces like kind of are always battling to find equilibrium in like science and in the psyche and in nature and all this, in creativity and all this shit. And like it just keeps coming up that, you got to go into that realm of chaos, that kind of, if it's failure or like a pandemic or like getting divorced or whatever it is. And you need to like go through that dark, unknown space that makes you very uncomfortable to push yourself to make order from it. And then, it's like this, it's like the yin yang symbol. I'm a bit obsessed with the yin yang symbol right now because it's like that idea of just going through the dark and then just you get to the rock bottom, and there's only going up from here, baby.
Man, you know, like that, like what you say right there, what you just said, it makes me light up because I've experienced that, like personally, right? You know, where you're at rock bottom and you're shelled and you're not sleeping and you're not eating, and like this is how it hit me. Like in my last job, which was at Club Monaco, for reference, I was the vice president of men's design there. I took that position when I was 34 years old. I did not have leadership experience. I didn't know how to lead a team. I didn't know how to motivate people in the right way. I didn't know how to like stay like optimistic during tough times. I didn't know how to do any of those things. And it caved in on me and it like collapsed my soul, right? Like I was having recurring nightmares. Like Jesus. I wasn't eating. Yeah, man, I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. I was like drinking too much wine. I was like trying to cope and I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal with this thing. Right. And then like, I had this recurring nightmare. We don't need to get into details because I don't want to bore people to death, but like one night, right? Like one night I had this nightmare for like 8 months, man. And like one night, like the culmination of the nightmare changed. And instead of being like this dark, terrifying thing, I opened this door and it was this light, like amazing, beautiful situation. And then I stopped having the nightmare. Haven't had the nightmare since. And it changed my entire perspective on like how to deal with like challenges, you know, like personally, professionally, and like, and how to just like really, you know, shift your mindset into like that fear-based mindset or flight-based mindset to just like letting it wash over you and then just owning it. And it doesn't mean that from that point on, I haven't experienced challenges that I don't know how to deal with, because I have. And I have had like, you know, a couple weeks of like, man, I'm not sleeping well. I'm not eating well. I'm just like stressed out, but it's a couple weeks versus a couple months. And then you can really delve into like your mind in terms of like, okay, what is at the root of like what I'm fearing or what I'm in like anguish over? And like, how do I deal with that head on as opposed to like pushing it like further down and burying it when it'll just like fester, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to just like push it out, like get it out there, face that stuff head on and just like pop it like a zit and move on, you know?
Yeah. Well, like, you know, like I feel like this conversation right now is kind of like, it's kind of all about the weird frustrations and failures of the fashion industry itself, and you know how it's, you know, and then how that you know, so many people I know, designers I know, who've been working for brands burn out. Like they burn out like hard, and you know, like it's just an accepted thing that happens, you know, in design, in fashion. But like, you know, there's something weird about the way that the whole fashion calendar and producing garments, the whole way that it's engineered, like that the system doesn't feel quite right. Like, and you know what's interesting right now that I'm noticing this year is like this kind of weird shift in, like, I feel like many industries, but definitely we're talking about fashion right now, that there's kind of this it's looking into the DNA of we're looking into the DNA of brands and the fashion industry itself and how that works, and we're trying to redefine its identity, its foundation to be relevant again, because this kind of system feels so irrelevant so quickly.
Right. You know, and it's like, you know, I think that there's a way that, you know, people like you think about it, right? And people that are close to the industry think about it. And I think that there's a way that like the younger folks are thinking about it in terms of like, why do you do it like that? Just like, why
I'm
would
in
you
love
do it
with
like
Gen
that?
Z right now, by the way. Gen
Dude,
Z, man. You've got a Gen Zer.
I've got two alphas, man. I've got two Gen Alphas.
Are we on alpha now?
We're at alphas now.
Oh my God.
my kids are 12, right? I have identical twin daughters and they're 12. And I'm just like, do you care about this? Does this matter to you? Do you care about this? And they're just like, no. You know, it's like, you know, I think like, it's, you know, and it's wonderful and terrible what we're going through right now here as a country, in terms of like, not only the pandemic, but like, there's like a whole, like, division here in terms of like how people are thinking and you know, what's important to people and like what we should be focused on versus what we shouldn't maybe. And like, just to get their perspective on that stuff is like, whoa, eye-opening, you know, because I'm getting up there, you know, like hair's gray and like I got wrinkles and bags in places and stuff and like saggy bits and like, so I think that I'm open-minded. Like I'm like, oh, I think I'm pretty sure I'm open-minded. I'm pretty sure I'm anti-racist. I'm pretty sure I'm like supportive of like all these communities, you know, but you're only sure of those things in the constructs of your own mind. Right. So
and
when
of
you
your
hear
generation too.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Right. So like someone will say something to me about like what this, you know, like maybe consider saying this next time or consider this. And at first I'm like, whoa, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm the open-minded one. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not. I'm not. My brain is broken. My brain is like formed in a certain way. And it's like, I need to like re-break it to like think about things and be like, well, I'm not thinking about this in an open-minded way. I'm not thinking about this in as, you know, in as non-linear a way as possible. And for me, that's critical in terms of like thinking through issues or problems or challenges is like non-linear. Like for me, that's the only way, because it's like you can see like a bunch of stuff happening at one time and then like utilize all those tools to fix the situation, as opposed to like step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. For me, it's just like, okay, all of it like kind of at one time. And anyway, yeah, it's interesting to get their perspective because they're much more open-minded about things that like I thought I was open-minded about. And then I'm not, you know? And so I'm open with them too, in terms of like, man, I had this nervous breakdown. I had these things happen to me and here I am stressed at work. So if I come home and I'm cranky, or if I come home and I'm like a bit of a dick, you know, like this is why. And I think that like, that's a very different from like the previous generation where like my dad would come home and he would never say anything like he would never talk about it. You know, he would never talk about his feelings. He would never talk about any of that stuff. He would never talk about being stressed out. He would never talk about like challenges that he was facing, which actually in the end does, you know, it does, it doesn't help the people in your family and especially like your kids and equip them with like skills for life, right? Because I think that that's one of the biggest ones is like, okay, being open-minded and communicating about like how you feel and like, and getting to know yourself like intimately, right? Because then you're like, okay, I know myself, I'm establishing my boundaries, I'm like creating my like safe space, and then that helps with that whole anxiety and stress thing as well. You know?
Beautiful. You know what's funny though? Like I read somewhere, I don't know, I think it was a BBC News article, but like they were talking about Gen Zers. I don't know much about Gen Alpha. I didn't even know they existed yet, but Gen Zers, like ironically, you know, people were saying people keep talking about the scary, devastating effects that social media and the internet will wreak havoc on the universe. But you know what? Apparently Gen Zers are like the most compassionate generation. They are the least risk taking generation. They're very adverse to risk. And like, you know, it's so beautiful. They kind of like grew up in a time and space where literally their time and space is not linear. They can be in multiple places at the same time. They can see so much, exposed to so much. I don't even know how, you know, it's like, I feel like it's like growing up. It's like being born into a multilingual family, you know. if you're not multilingual and you look at a kid that can speak 5 fluent languages and you're like, for that kid, it's nothing. For you, that if you just speak the one language, you're like, oh my God, my brain's going to explode. But for a kid that's just, grandma speaks, Italian to the kid and mom speaks Chinese and whatever, it's just, that's how the world works for that kid. There's no difference.
Totally. And the people that are saying that that this is wreaking havoc are probably, I'd bet on it, that them being older and not being equipped with the tools, again, maybe thinking they're open-minded but saying something like that is like trying to put the toothpaste in the tube, right? It's like, you can't go back.
Yeah.
So what are you going to say? What are you going to say? You're going to say that we're all just bound to, destroy the rock that we're on? No, it's like, okay, this is what we have now. This is where it's going. How do we make the best of it? And even like, look, I'm sitting here in like Cape May, man, and you're in Bangkok and I get to have this conversation with you. And how cool is that?
So
right?
Cool.
Like, how cool is that?
So cool.
And like, that to me is awesome, man. And like, there are definitely forces for good out there. It's not all just, I'm
a strong believer that there's much more good in this world than bad. But our little nuggins up here, they like to focus on the bad stuff and remember the bad stuff much more than all the good stuff. It's like how our brains are wired. So, it's easy to get overwhelmed. Just folks out there listening, just don't watch too much TV news. I like to listen to the radio to get my news every day. I find like the images too overwhelming sometimes. It's just like really in your face.
Totally.
Yeah.
So what do you like to listen to? Do you listen to, so I thought that was interesting what you just said in terms of like, okay, we like to focus on the bad, and that's the truth, man. Like, you just dwell on like the bad when like 98% of like your day may have been good. You're going to focus on like the 20 minutes that sucked. And it's like, and then you just obsess over that. Or I don't mean to generalize. I obsess over like that stuff. And it's like, how do you just eject that shit? You're like, I don't want this. I don't want it. Get it out. It's like, get it out. And I don't know. So if anybody out there who's listening with I want to know, send me
send Aaron a DM, text him.
Yeah, exactly. Once you figure that out.
But for me, I find like meditation. I mean, it sounds cliche and people can judge me for sounding woo, but meditation, man, that saved my life. I had like super anxiety problem like when I started my clothing business. Like, it's like, okay, I didn't come from a fashion design background. Okay, I went to art school. You don't learn anything at art school. Okay, you do not learn anything at art school. Okay, and so here
Where
I am.
did you go to art school? Where did you go to art school?
In Sydney, Australia. It's a place called Sydney College of the Arts, which is like Sydney University's art school. And it was literally in a mental hospital. No joke. It was an old mental hospital, all sandstone buildings. There were literally like scratch marks on the walls from, like, it was a mental asylum.
Oh, and, my God.
And I swear it was haunted. Like, it gave me the creeps, but it was a really great space to not learn anything. Yes. So then I'm like, okay, then I start a fashion business, and it's like, God damn, you have to be so organized. So
organized.
You have to be so organized, so on the ball, so fast at everything and doing, and so detail orientated, and then be creative on top of that. Just
totally.
If you have time
to. Totally. Right?
Yeah. Anxiety is such a thing of our field. But yeah, it's back to meditation. Meditation really helped.
So how did you start?
I started.
What were the steps that you took to get? Yeah.
So the steps I took was like my anxiety was so bad, and I'm the kind of person that's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm like, I just smile and just keep going. It started manifesting itself. The anxiety manifested itself in like, it affected my health, my skin.
Yeah.
It just festered. Like I was pressing it down. It just was like, nope, you're not pushing me down. Yeah. So it just
crazy,
came all
right?
out. Yeah. It's just nuts. Just goes to show how connected the human psyche is with your actual body function, which just makes
100%.
complete sense. It makes complete
sense.
So I went to see a Reiki person, and basically, okay. So you're on the same page. So I went to see a Reiki person because sometimes if I say that, so I'll get looks like, like just
same page.
Not okay. So to me, for folks listening, to me, Reiki is like a guided meditation with an experienced, with a professional. Okay. So they're going to help you. You're like an onion, and they're going to help you just peel away the layers of the shit that's just deeply embedded in you. And then, so, the part of my, steps to healing were just for daily meditations to focus on my physical experience of anxiety. So I felt my anxiety in the pit of my belly. You know, when you hear something, you feel like barfing. That was the anxiety. So that was the area that I feel that I experience stress in my body, and then just like focusing on that area just in your physical body, and just kind of just doing that as an exercise in itself is meditation in itself, because you're only focusing on that one thing. You're only focusing on what it feels like in that spot in your body, and just doing that, practicing over and over and every day. You then in your day-to-day life, when you start to feel that clench of stress, you go, oh, I know that feeling. Let's just take a little pause.
Yeah, totally.
And,
Yeah. Yep. I love it. It's awesome. I love it. I would do like, I am not not like an expert at that either. But I've found that if I take, if I'm feeling myself, if I feel that feeling, if I'm like, oh man, I'm starting to spin, I'm just like, that's how it feels like to me, right? Is like, I start to spin, and it's like, there's like too much, and I can't like stop it. And I can't like focus on like one thing at a time. I'm like, okay, it's like an avalanche of like all this stuff that I have to deal with. And I'm like, okay, it's easy to get overwhelmed and like get like pushed underwater by that. So it's like, okay, cool. I'm feeling that coming on. I'm feeling that spin. I have this bathroom at work, right? I can cut the lights out. I don't bring my phone. So it's like pitch black. And I just sit there for like 5 minutes, and I just like focus on my breath in. I'm holding my breath. I'm breathing out. I'm breathing all that bad shit out. Like, hey, man, you've been here before. Like, how to, work through these issues. These aren't as serious as like you're imagining them. They are in your head. It's just like, when you talked about going to like thinking about the bad stuff instead of the good stuff, it's like, you can let those things own you and like wash over you and drown you in a bad way, or just like wash over you and through you, and then you just like figure them out, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm overwhelmed, right? And then it's like, and then I found that just like also communicating that to people, hey, I need you to know, like, I'm overwhelmed right now, I'm like a little underwater, maybe we can like figure this out together, and that goes from like that goes personally and professionally too, like I'm very lucky in that I have like some friends that I love, man. And I've got like a couple different groups of these friends, and even that can become overwhelming, right? Because you're overwhelmed at work, you're underwater at work, and then maybe your friends are texting you, and it's like only just to say hey, or like to just to have a talk. But you're like, look, I even just that text message from you to say, hey, how are you doing, is like crippling, because I'm trying to cope with like all this stuff that's happening over here. And now I have to text you back and like start a conversation. And like, meanwhile, that's like a positive, lovely, amazing, wonderful thing. Like your friends are reaching out and saying, hey, what's up? You know?
Yeah.
But I think that it goes back to like establishing those boundaries, drawing like lines in the sand. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to pay attention to this right now. I'm not going to pay attention to this right now. I'm going to break all these things that are in my head down, right? And then I can just kind of tackle them, you know, as opposed to just being completely overwhelmed by them and like, and just incapacitated. You know, that's like where my anxiety comes from.
Well, I feel like
pretty scary shit, man.
Yeah, it's real damn scary shit, especially with all the nightmares. I feel like you know, yeah. Oh God, I've been there too, man. I feel ya.
Yeah, dude.
I feel ya. Really got me there.
Yeah.
But you know, like in our kind of like modern condition, I feel like we are conditioned to think that we need to be as productive and work all the time as possible. Like I used to work 7 days a week. I worked 7 days a week for like years. Like what? Man. And
what?
You know, and then part of the whole you know, like healing anxiety was to just be like, you know what? Sunday is no work. No social media work, whatever. Sunday is flea market day. I mean, for me it's kind of work related, but I kind of love it. I really do.
No, totally.
No, but it's just, that's the day for friends and family and fun stuff. Full stop. Yeah. Do you have like a thing that you do? Like, is it sport or like what do you do? What do you like doing?
Oh man, geez, there's a lot. You know, like I can, you know, be outside. I can go golfing with some friends. I can go hiking with my family. Just hanging out with them, spending time with them. I like to like build little models because that helps me helps slow my brain down, you know? So like this is nerdy, man, but I'll build those like Gundam models, you know? And like, so but like, it's like all the pieces are so small, and it's like, I used to just build Legos, but then I'm like, the Legos, my brain started to like be able to run faster than the Legos were put together. So I needed something more minute and like complicated. Nice. So those things, dude, like if I start building those things, my brain shuts off and all it does is like focus on that, you know? So those are it. And then just like hanging out with friends and just like hanging out with my family. Like that's what I like to do, man. But I think, you know, what you said too about like, okay, you work for 7 days a week. I can't agree with you more. Like the culture that we're in now is like produce. And if you're not producing at such a high level, then there's 50 people lined up behind you ready to take your spot. Right. But, you know, like I was the same as you. Like I hadn't taken a vacation in like 7 years. And again, this is at my last job. And one of my friends got married in Hawaii. Right. And a bunch of my friends were going, and my wife and I were just like, let's just go for like 10 days. We went to Hawaii, you know, with like a bunch of friends were there. The kids were at home. It was just like super mellow. And I came back just like a new person, man, like refreshed, recharged.
Oh, hell yeah.
So I think like and then I was like, okay, cool. That's not ever happening again. I'm going to take as much vacation as I could possibly take. And like, because all that does is make you better, man. It's like that recovery time. It's like when you're working out. That's also what I like to do. I like to go to the gym. I go to the gym like 3 or 4 times a week, and it like clears my head, man. It helps with my head. Again, like you were saying, everything is so connected, right? So it's like you go there, work out first thing in the morning. It like clears your head and it opens your, you know, just like shakes the cobwebs out, you know? Yeah. I think that's a big deal. And so it's recovery time it's basically the point I'm getting to, right? It's like, if you're working that hard, you're not allowing that elasticity of like recovery time and like your body and brain to come back to it, to snap back to it. All you're doing is just sucking the well dry, man, depleting all the vibes, all the energy, all the good stuff. And you're not refilling it with good stuff. You're refilling it with stress and bad shit. then your well is tainted, man. You got to keep that well crisp and fresh.
As a creative person, I think that if you don't have that recharge, you lose your creativity. You make boring
100%.
stuff. Make real boring stuff, which is a segue into my question. Well, that not boring stuff, but creativity. Like, what is your creative process? You kind of asked me about mine before the podcast, but we kind of sort of touched on it. But like, what's your fashion creative juju?
Right, like process? So I like. I'm a consumer of like content, culture, music, movies, just watching what's going on currently, but like in the past, and just like trying to like it's more of like a sociological like experiment. I was talking to my friend about this the other day that I get to work with, and it's like I love to just like devour culture, right? And like just like even the smallest bits, like where my friends go get their food if they live in Paris, or where like the little bodegas they go to in New York, and like what their day to day is, and like what the music they're listening to. And so I just like consume stuff, right? And like and my brain is just like racing all the time because I'm super ADD, and I'm just it's just like constantly spinning, right? So the only way for me to feed that is with like watching, listening, just like constantly consuming stuff, because it's like constantly spinning, not in a way that makes me like productive on like a on like a corporate professional level. None of that. It's like it's all counter that, because it's just such a frenetic space up there. So my process is just like consuming images, film, music, photography, all that stuff, right? And then getting like super inspired by it, and then like delving deeper into like each one of those things. Like if I'm into something specific, I can just like go further down the rabbit hole and further down that rabbit hole. And then that helps me find like, I might come across doing like all that, just like stuff, consuming stuff. I might come across like an image, a song, a film, a scene in a film. And then I can take a screenshot of that scene, and then that becomes like a North Star for me, or like a target, and then from that target that I extracted out of like one thing, I can create an own imaginary like little universe based on like maybe what's happening right now from a, I know it sounds silly, but like it drives color palette, it drives print pattern, it drives like silhouette, it drives detail, it drives all of that, right? Yeah. And that's like creating like little universes, creating little mini Gundam universes, and then universe. Right. And then you just like start putting stuff to it. You start pulling styles either that you have around, it could be vintage, it could be newer, it could be neo vintage, it could be something brand new, but you don't like something about it and you want to make it better, but there's certain elements that you love about it that you want other people to experience, but not in the way that it's been presented to them because it doesn't work right, So it's like all of those things. And then I tether it to like an image or like something tangible that other people can see. So it's not just like stuff, but it actually is like a breathing organism, like living, breathing collection, living, breathing thing.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot, dude, but I swear it makes sense sometimes.
It makes sense. It makes complete sense to me. And you know what? Yep. Like, I feel like I want to know, like, okay, because my process is very similar to yours, actually. And it's always driven by a certain feeling that I have that I can't put into words about what it is to exist on this planet right now. So our world is always changing. It's, it changes so fast right now. And, like you have this kind of gut reaction to whatever's going on, whatever's like, the news and like what's going on in the world, in your personal life, and in so many things in culture. Culture is a reflection of what's happening right now in the world too. So it's like all this collective feeling, let's say, that we don't really quite understand, but we try to understand it by acting it out in our work or in our art or in our whatever it is that people do. And I feel like where does this kind of image that you find, screenshot you find, whatever, it's like coming from something deeper. So would you agree with that?
Yes. And what I also think comes from that is like, again, I was having a conversation with a friend about this too. It's like, and you alluded to it when you're like, okay, when you go to the market on Sunday, it's kind of your job, and you kind of enjoy it, but it's also a day off. That's where I think it's also really stressful for creatives is like, what I love is my job. Like, like I made, like you made it. I made, you make what you love your job, and that has pros and cons to it. People are like, oh, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm like, I think that's complete horseshit. Because if you do what you love, such horseshit, right? If you do what you love, then you're so into it that it makes you insane, unfortunately. Sorry, Lauren, you're insane. You're going to have to be insane.
That's okay. I've accepted that since childhood.
You too. Lean into it, right?
Yeah.
But so that's good and bad. But I think one of the good things about it in terms of like creating work, like I create work where I work with people and we all get to create work together as a team that other people have to actually spend money on and enjoy, right? But I'm like, the deeper you connect with what you're doing, and then when you talk to people about it, it comes out as true and genuine because it is. And if you're creating and building things in a true and genuine way that you truly care about, to me, it only makes sense that other people will care about it too, because you're not bullshitting them.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're in the love of the game. You have the love of the game. You get to work with people that have the love of the game. You're creating something together, and like you're doing it in a passionate, genuinely passionate, true way, then it will relate to people, and I think like a lot of times, like people, I'll talk to people in the industry, and it's like I get irked a lot of the times because I'm like I love what I do so much, and I spend so much time doing what I do, whether it's like all the components that relate to my job, it's like, I just love it so much. And I spend it's my hobby. It's like, so I spend all my time doing it. I'm consumed by it. So when I, get in discussions with people about like, certain things, I find it also sends me like off a ledge, because I'm like, I understand that we're debating this, and I understand that you may have a point of view around this, but I also understand that I've devoted my entire existence to this. And if I think that maybe you haven't, then it'll be like a Street Fighter duel, and I'll be like,
totally,
Hadouken! And I'll just like light you up, dude. It'll be like all that, because I care about it so much, and I've devoted like so much time and so much energy into it. I make my family nuts. I make everyone around me insane, because it's like, oh, you have, like you're obsessive about like buying things and shopping for things. And like, I'm obsessed about like, I'm obsessed with what maybe these things like, how they're tied to culture, what they represent, maybe just the way something looks, yes, I have a bookshelf with like Nikes on it. Yes. Because like, I'm obsessed with Nikes from a certain era. Like, I don't know why. I don't know why. I don't have to explain why.
No,
I just realize it. And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I felt like my whole life I would have to like defend it and like explain to people why. But I'm like, this is just how my brain works, man. I'm obsessed with certain things, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm obsessed with like how different things go together. So it's not like, I need the whole Agassi kit. I don't need the shirt. I don't need the shorts. I don't need the shoes all together. But I'm going to extract an element of that Agassi kit and put it together with like something else that's like different, and like this whole juxtaposition and like tension between like pretty and gritty and all these things. Like I'm like a psycho, dude.
That's so fun,
fucking psycho.
That's so fun. I can relate on every level. Like, yeah, but also, it's hard it's hard to kind of live in different worlds, like, where,
totally.
Well, but I think part of life is also being able to be able to relate to so many different worlds in life too.
Totally.
Otherwise you
100%.
become a one-channeled crazy person who cannot relate to people. And I feel like, a lot of artists and creative people are like that. A lot of mathematicians, I think mathematicians are artists, creative people as well. But like, you end up being one-channeled people. And apparently that's also a big difference between men and women, is like this: men tend to be more one-channel, singular channeled than women. This is just statistics. It's not like I'm not making anything up or being sexist or anything. It's just men and women are different, okay? So if PC Principal was listening from South Park, yeah, men and women are different. We have different junk. We've got different things going on.
Totally.
And, but yeah, that's, anyway, it's nice it's also nice to relate to different aspects in the world too. But I understand a lot of people don't get the crazy creative people, and that's okay. That's okay.
That's okay.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah. Like growing up in school and stuff, like I remember my mom, like, it's kind of like being at like her wit's end, right? Because having to go see I had to go see a therapist and stuff, because she was like, he's, like, I think my guidance counselors and teachers were like, this kid is stupid, and I think my mom was like, he's not stupid. He just doesn't like understand how, you're communicating with him. And they're like, yeah, he's stupid,
Yeah.
But like, thank goodness for her, right? Like she, I could relate to her. She's an artist, she's an artist, and I don't know, man. It's just like, lean into it.
Yeah.
Lean into it. Just take like a big bath, in it, and like in your weirdness. And I think like the more that you become comfortable with that, the more that you can be yourself. And then the more that you can be yourself, the more you can be genuine and honest. And I think that's just kind of like the secret sauce.
That's Aaron Levine on live. Thank you very much. Well, that was a great place to end, because we're up to 1 hour now, and that was, we dove in deep, man. Thanks for that. That was so fun.
That was so fun. I appreciate you. That was not like a normal Friday morning,
How do people follow your awesome Instagram or anything else that you want to plug on this obscure podcast?
My Instagram is at Aaron P. Levine, Aaron P like Peter.
P the letter P.
Levine, Levine. And like I love again, like I'll get overwhelmed with DMs sometimes, because like I've found that like when we talk about stuff like this, like people feel relief and they want to like talk about it. So and I try to get back to as many as I can, but I can't get back to all of them.
Life.
So I try to like I'll try to like do a post that relates to like a lot of things that I can't get back to. So if people want to like try to, reach out and like talk, if you're feeling overwhelmed, and, either Lauren and I can do anything to help, we're here for you. I just signed you up for that one.
Caring, man. Yeah, I do my best too.
I know you do.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for the time, and bye, everybody.
Bye. I appreciate you, Lauren. Thank you.